Alrighty, welcome back. Sorry about the delay. To another thrilling episode of Cyteen by CJ Cherryh. I had to cut the chapter in half last time, so we're going to finish the chapter. So it'll be a pretty short one. How long is the chapter after that? Long enough. Tomorrow will be a longer stream anyway, which is fine. I don't know if I'm going to be able to get through that whole chapter, though. That's a pretty hefty boy. Oh, no, that should be fine. Alrighty. Where's my bookmark? There it is. I just put it down. So, previously on, Ari is still kind of dealing with the fallout of her mother dying at Fraggoth. She's allowed to go on little shopping trips, expensive shopping trips. Oh, here we go. Jim Burke 7457 says, I've always wondered if you have names for the recurring voices you use, or if you just think of them as female Southern accent. Some of them. Actually, I don't really give any of them names or even really identify them. I just know what it sounds like, which is not a good organizational system. There's a couple that are like variations on a theme, I'll admit, and that's that can get kind of confusing if I accidentally put those in close proximity to each other narratively. So I've got the more aggressive, high-pitched kind of nasal guy, and we're sort of doing that for Justin. But it's not as aggressive as, what's his name in, not the Jesus Incident, the one before that, Destination Void, who was really annoying. A very annoying guy. But it kind of derives from a root where I'm, like, trying to imitate, what's his name? Oh, I don't know, guys. I can't remember his name. It doesn't matter. It is a good question. I'm not going to say I don't put that much thought into it. That's not true. I just don't have them labeled mentally that way. It's more of a physical configuration. I should devise some sort of mnemonic way of doing that, though. That is a good idea. Anyway, so the big thing going on with Ari right now is that now that she has previous Ari's apartments and property, she's now being introduced to Ariane Emory's computer system entitled Base 1. And there's a lot going on with Base 1, namely that it talks to her. Now, using Ariane Emory's voice, and I'm not... The way it's written is very... It seems clear to me that it's supposed to be, like, Ariane Emory's voice, not, like, her brain. It's, like, it makes no bones about the fact that it's just an algorithm, basically, an LLM, but speaking with her voice. And some of it has actual recordings of her. Some of it could just be text, but anytime they've got it, they'll have italics, and I'll be reading it in Ariane Emory's voice unless otherwise indicated. So the big thing going on is that as Lil Ari grows older and tests higher and higher, and just gains more knowledge about the world, Base 1 will reveal more and more about the previous Ari's files. Generally releasing it in order, because the stated reason being, here are things that I was working on, and a bunch of them didn't pan out, and I don't want to send you down blind alleys where I know there's a failure, but you don't. Which isn't to say I'm not going to hold that information from you, I'm just going to deliver it as it came to me at the time, because it was that well recorded. So that's kind of the big thing going on with her. The other thing that she's got going on is she's kind of got this little gang of kids. I wouldn't say they're in her thrall. They are actually friends. They are in fact friends with each other. Although there's, it's sometimes it's a little it seems a little coercive. But they are friends. They are getting along, and in order to actually be friends with each other, they have to basically sneak into like storage closets and storage rooms throughout the Reseune facilities because of Ari's fear that if she is spotted being friends with these people, they'll get taken away, and their fear that they'll have to go away. So they're meeting in secret. They're making plans. They're doing things. I think Amy Carnath is actually in charge of Ari's Guppy project that she was doing, which is pretty neat. So these are clever children, and they're all around like, I don't know, 8, 10, 11 years of age. They're pretty young, but they're very smart. Meanwhile, Justin is out here trying to basically get while the going is good, do stuff while he has the opportunity. Namely with regards to these, what do they call them? They have a name for what he's doing. Let me skim through here. Basically, it's a kind of Pavlovian reward thing where, but more, less problematic, where basically there's a bit of some of the Ozzy tape sets will allow the Ozzy to feel a sense of greater fulfillment by doing certain things, which they don't have now beyond being given reward tape. There is a distinction here. It's being mentioned that this is a perilous road and can lead to serious problems. But they've done the simulations, and it's something out like 10 generations, and they're not seeing issues. So this is before they even get to try to put it in anyone. So Justin recently got Dennis to agree to a 6-month trial run on a test subject. So we'll see how that pans out, if it pans out. And I think that's roughly where we left off. There's still like a bunch of drama and politicking going on behind the scenes at Reseune. There's going to be things revealed about what's been going on later. There is stuff going on. There are reasons why people are behaving the way they are and doing the things they do, acting the way they act. We're not privy to some of that. I don't consider that a spoiler. I consider that a heads up. CJ Cherryh doesn't mess around. There is method here. There is plan here, as opposed to, oh, CJ Cherryh is a hack and doesn't have a plan and people are just doing stuff. She's not like that. For anyone who hasn't read CJ Cherryh stuff before, and hasn't read a book by her that is this bulky and large and involved, she plays the long game. She's very good at that. Sometimes things tend to come together very, very quickly towards the end of a book. But like Down Below Station, like a lot happens in like the space of 50 pages. It's very fast. This is a bit more measured out. This is a slower paced book overall for the overarching plot. But from stuff within, it still roars along pretty good. So have no fear, this is going places. That is not a spoiler, because if it wasn't, I wouldn't be reading it, if it went nowhere. So let me just slurp some water down, and we will get rolling. And thank you for tuning in. Frank Miser / Mulo Spult. I'll slurp some water down and we will get rocking with the rolling. Six. It was shots again. Ari winced as the hypo popped against her arm. Not one hypo, but 3, besides the blood tests she had had every few days of her life.
Nothing wrong with you, Dr. Ivanov had told her repeatedly. We just do this.
Which was a lie. Dr. Ivanov had finally said so when she found out she was a replicate and asked whether the first Ari had something wrong with her.
No, but the first Ari had tests just like yours, because her mama knew she was going to be somebody special, and because tests like these are valuable information. You're a very bright girl. We'd like to know if something special goes on in your bloodstream.
But the shots made her dizzy and sick at her stomach, and she was tired of getting shots and having needles in her arm. She frowned at the nurse and thought where she would like to give the nurse a hypo, right when her back was turned. But she took out the thermometer under her tongue, a second till it registered. Oh, whoops, I stumbled all over that. She frowned at the nurse and thought where she would like to give the nurse a hypo, right when her back was turned. But she took the thermometer under her tongue, a second till it registered. There's no comma there. Why do I think there's a comma there? But she took the thermometer under her tongue a second till it registered, then took it out and looked at it. "A point under," she told the nurse, who insisted to look at it. "I always am. Do I get to go now?" "Wait here," the nurse said, and went out, leaving her sitting in the damn robe and a little cold, the way the hospital always was. People could freeze to death in this place. There's a nice bit of callback there. People could freeze to death here. She doesn't know how Ari died, by the way. Just that she did, as far as I know. In a moment, Dr. Ivanov came in.
Hello, Ari. Feeling fine?
The shot made me sick. I want to go get an orange or something.
That's fine. That's a good idea.
He came and took her pulse again, and smiled at her.
A little mad?
I'm tired of this. I've been in here twice this week. I'm not going to have any blood left.
Well, your body is going through some changes. You're just growing up, sweets, that's all. Perfectly normal. You know a lot of it, but you're going to take a tape this afternoon. If you have any questions, you can call me or Dr. Wojtkowski, whichever you'd rather. She might be a little better at this.
She wrinkled her nose, not with any clear idea, really, what he was talking about, except she was embarrassed sitting there in the robe, which was more than she used to sit there in, and suspected that it had to do with sex and boys, and that she was going to be embarrassed as hell if she had to listen to Dr. Ivanov explain to her what she had already figured out.
Do you understand?
He would ask her every 3 lines, and yes, she would say, because he would not get through it without that. But he didn't mention it. He just told her to go on to the library. She had the tape to do. They gave it to her to take home to use on the house machine, so it wasn't one of the skill ones that she had to take with a tech. It certainly wasn't, she decided when she saw the title. It said, Human Sexuality. She was embarrassed in front of the librarian, who was a man, and tucked it into her bag and took it fairly straight home, very glad that Celie was out and Nellie was at her day job and there wasn't anyone around. She applied the patch over her heart and lay down on the couch in the tape lounge and took the pill. When the pill began to work, she pushed the button. And was awfully glad, in a vague, tape-dazed way, that she hadn't had to take this one with any tech sitting by her.
There were things she hadn't known, things a lot different than horses, and things the same, and things Dr. Edwards had sort of hit on in biology, but not really explained with pictures and in the detail that tape had. When it was over, she lay there recovering from the pill and feeling really funny. Not bad. Not bad at all. But like something was going on with her she could not control, that she sure as hell didn't want Uncle Dennis or Seeley to know about. It certainly had to do with sex. And it was hard to get up finally and get her mind off it. She thought about doing the tape again, not that she was not going to remember, but because she wanted to try out the feeling again, to see if it was the way she remembered it. Then she thought it might not feel the same, and she didn't want it not to. So she put the tape back in her bag, and because she didn't want the thing lying around her room where Nellie would find it and look at her funny, she had a glass of orange juice to get her blood moving again, and walked all the way back to the library to drop it in the turn-in slot. Then she went to lunch and went to class, but her concentration was shot to hell. Even Dr. Edwards frowned at her when he caught her wool gathering. She did her write-up on the filly. It was a long day, because people were mostly busy. Uncle Dennis and Seeley and Nellie and everybody, because Florian and Catelyn were off since 3 days ago on a training exercise that was not going to finish till the end of the week. She went over to the Guppy lab to see if Amy was there. Tommy was. Tommy was not who she wanted to see, but she sat and talked with him a little while. Tommy was doing some stuff with the Reds that she could give him some information on. She went home to do more homework. Alone.
Ari,
Uncle Dennis said, on the minder, when she had had dinner and she was still doing homework in her room.
Ari, I want to talk with you in my study.
Oh, God, she thought. Uncle Dennis was going to ask her about the tape. She had rather die. But it was even more embarrassing to make a fuss about it. So she got up and slunk in and stood in Uncle Dennis's doorway.
Oh, Ari, there you are.
I'm going to die, right here, on the spot.
I want to talk with you. Sit down.
God, I have to look at him.
She sat and held on to the arms of the chair.
Ari, you're getting older. Nellie's really fond of you, but she's really not doing much but housework anymore. She really lives with the lab babies, and she's awfully good at that. I wonder if you've thought any more whether you'd like, well, to see Nellie go over to lab full time. It's the nature of nurses, you know. The babies grow up.
That was all it was. She drew a long breath and thought about her room, and how she liked Nellie, but she liked Nellie better when she wasn't with Nellie, because Nellie always had her feelings hurt and was always upset when she wanted to spend more time with Florian and Catelyn, and was constantly tweaking at her hair, her clothes, straightening her collar. Sometimes Nellie made her want to scream.
Sure, she said. Sure, if she's all right. I don't think she's very happy.
She felt guilty about that, sort of, because Nellie had been Mama's, because Nellie had been hers, because Nellie was Nellie, and never would understand the way she was now. Oh, and never would understand the way she was now. That's better. And because she was so glad it was about that and not about the other thing, she just wanted to agree and get on out of there. She was guilty the next morning when Nellie went to hospital, not knowing what they were going to do with her tape this time.
I'm really not upset,
Nellie protested to Uncle Dennis at the door, with her overnight kit in her hand.
I don't think I need to.
That's fine, Uncle Dennis said. I'm glad, but I think you're due for a check. A super said anything that he had to say to keep an Azzy from being stressed. So Nellie came and kissed her goodbye.
Bye, Nellie,
Ari said, and hugged her around the neck and let her go. She was able to do that, because letting Nellie know would scare Nellie to death. Only when the door shut she bit her lip hard enough to bleed and said to Uncle Dennis, I'm going on to class.
Are you all right, Ari?
I'm fine. But she cried when she got out in the hall, and straightened her face up and wiped her eyes and held it in, because she was not a baby anymore. Nellie was not going to get hurt. Nellie was going to hospital, where they would slide her right over to a job she was happy at, and tell her she had done a wonderful job, her first baby was grown, and she had a whole lot of others that needed her. It was foolish to cry. It was foolish to cry when it was just part of growing up. The apartment was going to be lonely until supper time. She went over to Amy's to do her homework, and told Amy about Nellie leaving, because she was finally able to talk about it.
She was in the way anyway.
Oh, that's Ari.
She was in the way anyway, she said. She was always sniping at Florian and Catelyn.
Then she felt mean for saying that. "How are you feeling?" Uncle Dennis asked her again at dinner. "Are you all right with Nellie?"
"I'm fine," she said. "I just wish Florian and Catelyn would get back."
"Do you want to call them home?" Right at the end of one of their exercises. It was very serious to them. So was she, but it was like taking something away from them.
"No," she said. "They really like the overnights. Not like, because they come back all scraped up, but like, you know, they enjoy telling me about it. I don't need them that bad."
"I'm proud of you," Uncle Dennis said. "A good super has to think that way." She felt a little better then, and went to do her homework ahead, because she could, and she had rather do it and have something to fill her time and have it over with when Florian and Catelyn got home. Except she had a message from the computer when she went into her room. "Ari," the minder said, "check base 1.
"Go ahead,"
she said, and looked at the screen.
"Ari, this is Ari Sr. Sex is part of life, sweet. Not the most important part, but this is your coming-of-age lecture. I don't know how old you are, remember, so I have to keep it simple. Library says you've checked out human sexuality. Have you had it?" "Yes, yesterday." "Good. You're 10 years old. This program is triggered by your medical records. You're about to start your monthly cycles, sweet. Welcome to a damn unfunny fact of life. Housekeeping has been notified. You're going to have the appropriate stuff in your cabinet. Hell of a thing to get caught without. You've also had a shot that means you'll reject any pregnancy. So you don't have to worry about that, at least. Because without that, your body's perfectly capable of it now. I'm going to leave the what to and what with to the tape program, sweet. I figure you know. Probably it's given you some ideas. I know. I had it too. They're not bad ideas. I want you to listen to what I'm going to say next with everything you've got, like it was tape. This is private. It's about sex, and it's one of the most important things I'll ever have to tell you. Are you alone? "Yes." All right. The ideas you have, sweet, are perfectly natural. Is your pulse a little elevated? "Yes." You feel a little flushed? "Yes." That's because you're thinking about sex. If I asked you to do complicated math, you'd probably make a mistake right now. That's the important lesson, sweet. Biology interferes with logic. There's 2 ways to deal with it. Do it and get it out of your head, because that feeling explodes like a soap bubble once you've done sex. Or if it's somebody you really like, or somebody you don't like, who upsets you and makes you feel very, very strong reactions, you'd better think a whole lot about doing it, because that kind explodes all right, but it keeps coming back and bothering your brain, sweet. You'll be thinking with the part of you that doesn't have anything but feeling, and that's damn dangerous. When adults meet, sweet, and start getting to know each other, this is one of the main things that's different than kids. Kids are quite logical in some ways, adults aren't. That's why they seem to see character so clearly. But when adults deal with each other, this feeling you've begun to get gets right in the middle of their judgment. Now, there are some people who just let it take over. And the thing about this feeling is that it's playing totally off the emotional level, out of memories, out of what we've set up, out of what we're set up to believe is handsome or sexy, a whole lot of things that haven't got a damn thing to do with truth. There are some people who learn early that they're very good looking and that they can make anybody have this feeling about them, and they use it to get what they want. This doesn't mean they have any feeling inside at all. That's one reason to watch out who you go to bed with and who you let affect you that way. There are other times when you get that feeling about somebody who doesn't have it for you, and that's one of the hardest things in the world to deal with. But you have to stop it then and let your brain take over, because you don't get everything you want in this world, and it's not fair to the other person at all. If you think about it, you'll know how they'd feel. First, if they didn't care for you as a friend, and then if they did, and you kept insisting on having your way. You can see how messy that gets. Sometimes it happens the other way around. And if you don't see it happening, or if you're too soft-hearted to say no, you can hurt somebody worse than if you say, "I'm sorry, this won't work," right off. Sometimes it works right on both sides, and watch out then too, sweet, because sex isn't the only thing in life, and if you let it be, that's all you'll ever have. I'll tell you what the most important thing is, in case you haven't figured it out. It's being able to do what makes you the happiest, the longest. And I don't mean sex, and I don't mean chocolates, sweet. I mean being able. Able means just exactly having the time, the money, the ability, and a thing to do that makes your life worth living long enough to get it done. You aren't going to have a clear sight of that thing until you've had a look at the world as it is, and had a chance to figure out what the world could be if you worked at it. So when you get that feeling, you think real clearly whether you can afford to give in to it and whether you're able to handle it without getting your whole life slanted in some direction that isn't smart. The time to give in to that feeling is when you can afford to, just the same as you don't spend money you haven't got, promise things you don't have time to do, or get involved in projects you can't finish. If it's a minor thing and nobody can get hurt, fine, do it. If it's got complications, don't do it until you know damn well you can handle it and know how far the complications can possibly extend. At 10, you can't see everything. I was there. Believe me, I know. I got involved with somebody once, and I really liked him. Unfortunately, he wasn't as smart as I am, and he wanted to tell me what to do and how to run my life, because he sensed I really was hooked on him, and he really liked ordering people around. So do I, of course. So when I got that figured out, which took longer than usual because neurons work logic problems a hell of a lot faster than glands, I'm being facetious. Anyway, I told him off, I reversed what was going on, and he hated it like hell. Hated me after that, too. So, not only did the feeling go away, I lost a friend who would have stayed a friend if I hadn't let him do a power move on me. I'm telling you about it now because you can learn about fire 2 ways. Put your hand in and understand it with the neurons below your neck, or listen to me tell you about it and understand it with the ones up in your head. Your brain is the operations center that has to keep your hand out of the fire in the first place, so if you can believe me and use the sense you were born with, you can save yourself all the pain and embarrassment of a real lesson. Brains and sex fight each other to control your life, and thank God brains get a head start before sex comes along. Sex is when you're the most vulnerable you'll ever be. Brains is when you're least. Brains have to win out, that's all, so they can make a safe time for sex to happen. Remember that. Now, don't mistake. It's not bad to be vulnerable sometimes, but it's stupid to walk around that way. There are too many people just waiting for that chance. It's stupid to miss sex altogether for fear someone will take advantage of you. Use the brain, sweet, and find somebody in some place and some time safe. Brains are nature's way of making sure you live long enough to spawn, if you were a frog. But you're better than a frog, so plan to live longer. And for God's sake, don't ever use sex to get your own way where brains won't work. That's the dumbest thing in the world to do, because then you're operating without brains at all, aren't you? That's as plain as I can make it. I want you to come back to this more than once, till you've understood what I'm saying. If I could have learned this one thing early enough, I'd have been happier. Good luck, Ari. I hope to hell you learn this part.
For what it's worth, I think a lot of that is very good advice. Like, I think when it comes time, if I ever have kids, to give them the birds and the bees, I'm going to give them a version of that. Something like, anyway. There's a lot of good advice in there. She thought about that a long time into the night, into a very lonely night, because Nellie was gone and Florian and Catelyn were away, and she felt awful the next morning. Then she found out why she felt awful and why her gut hurt, and mostly she just wanted to kill something. But she found the stuff in the bathroom all right, read the instructions and got it all figured out. Dr. Wojtkowski had given her a booklet with the package, which was very plain and echoed a lot of the things the tape had said. It was more biology than she wanted in 1 week, damn it, and she was embarrassed and mad when the minder said Uncle Dennis was waiting breakfast. "I'll get there when I can!" she yelled at it, and took her pill and got herself in order and went out to breakfast.
Are you all right?
Dennis asked. She glared at him, figuring he damn well knew everybody else did. "I'm just fine," she said, and ate without another word while he read his morning reports. Florian and Catelyn came home late, sore and tired, with bandages on Catelyn's hand, and full of stories, what the exercise had been, how Catelyn had gotten her hand cut getting a piece of metal fixed for a trap, but it had worked, and they had survived all the way through the course. Which youngers didn't do. She wished she had something better than losing Nellie to tell them, and she wasn't about to tell them why she was sulking in her bedroom and feeling rotten. Certainly not Florian, anyhow, but she got Catelyn apart from Florian and told Catelyn what the trouble was. Catelyn listened and made a face and said, well, it happened. If you were on an operation, you could take stuff so it came early or later. Never take XII pills, Mama had said, but it sure sounded attractive. It was worth asking Dr. Wojtkowski about it. Damned if she was going to ask Dr. Ivanov. It was also a damned nasty come-down from all the interesting stuff about sex. Not fair, she thought. Not fair. Just when her friends were getting home. And one of them was a boy, and XII, and she was his super, which meant she had to be responsible. Damn it. I'm probably mangling Wojtkowski. I'm not quite sure how that's pronounced. Fortunately, it's the space future, so you can kind of get away with stuff. And be like, well, no. In the space future, they pronounce it differently. Mama had Ollie. She thought about Ollie a lot. Oh, let's not flip the page. She thought about Ollie a lot when she thought about boys. Ollie was administrator of Reseune Space, doing Maman's job. But Ollie never wrote. And she figured he would if he wanted to. Or Mama had never gotten the letters. Or never wanted them. That hurt too much to think about. She knew what she thought. Mama had never gotten them. Gerard had stopped them. And Gerard would stop any letters from getting to Ollie. So she tried not to think about that part. Just Ollie, how nice he had been, how he had always been so patient and understood Mama, and how Mama could be down, and Ollie would come and put his hand on her shoulder, and Mama felt better, that was all. There was Sam. Sam was going to be big and strong as Ollie. But Sam was one of those people Ari Sr. was talking about that liked you without you liking them that way. She felt good about having figured that out before she ever heard it from Ari Sr., like it proved her predecessor was giving her good advice. She felt the same about Tommy. Tommy was all right to work with, but he was stubborn. He was all right being Amy's cousin, and number 2 behind Amy, and that meant doing anything with Tommy was going to mess things up with Amy. That part of the first Ari's advice made that make sense too. Complications. There were older boys. Mika Carnath-Edwards, Will Morley, Steph Dietrich, who were worth thinking about. But Mika was a lot older. That was no good. Will was just dull. And Steph was Evgenia Vojkowski's, who was his age. She sighed, and kept circling back to the same thought, and watching Florian when Florian wasn't watching her. Florian was smarter and more fun than any of them, even Sam. Florian was so damned nice-looking, not baby-faced like Tommy, not clumsy like Sam. She found herself just watching him move, just staring at the way his jaw was, or his arms, or whatever. He had a figure the others didn't, that was what, because he worked so hard. He could move the way they couldn't, because he had muscle Tommy didn't, and he was limber like Sam wasn't. And he had long lashes and dark eyes and a nice mouth and a jawline with nothing of baby about it. He was also Catelyn's partner. He was part of two, and they had been together forever, and they depended on each other in ways that had to do with things that could get you killed if that partnership got messed up. That was more serious than any hurt feelings. And they trusted her and depended on her in ways nobody else ever would, as long as she lived. So she played Ari Sr.'s advice over and over when she was alone in her room, silent because of the security monitoring, and told herself there had to be somebody safe, somewhere, somebody she couldn't hurt or who wouldn't mess things up. Sex wasn't fun, she decided. It was a damned complicated mess. It gave you cramps, and it tangled things up and made grown-ups not trust each other. And if you really fouled up, you got pregnant, or you got your best friends mad at each other. No fair at all. Seven. Spring happened, the 11th, and the filly was getting restless in her tank, a knot of legs and body, for a long time now too big for the lens to see all of. Florian loved her the moment she began to look like a horse and Sarah had brought him to the lab and let him look into the tank. And when it came to birthing her, which Sarah said felt like she had been pregnant all these months, she had to work so hard for her and do all that paperwork. Florian knew who was the best person down in Ag to help out with that, and who was strong enough to handle the filly and keep her from hurting herself, and who knew what to do. He told Sarah, and Sarah told the staff in the AG lab, taking his advice right off. So up came Andy, a very pleased Andy, who shyly shook Sarah's hand and said in his quiet way, "Thank you, Sarah," because Andy loved Horse and all Horse's kind, and Sarah loved them in spite of the fact that Horse had broken Sarah's arm, which was probably the worst moment of Andy's whole life. So it was a very, very happy Andy who came up to the AG lab and knew it was true what Florian had come down to the barns to tell him, that Sarah wasn't put out with Horse. Sarah loved him too, and Sarah wanted more of his kind. Sarah was working to birth another female, and was going to ride her, and show everybody what Horse and his kind could do. "Sarah," Andy said, bowing low. "Florian says you're the best there is," Sarah said, and Andy knew then, Florian was sure, that his Messera, his Messera was the finest, the best, and the wisest Messera in all Reseune, and maybe farther. So that's Sarah being the general honorific, and now we've got a new one, M''Sarah. And I'm not quite sure what that indicates offhand. It'll come to me. "I don't know," Andy said, "Sarah, but I'll sure take care of her the best I can." So the labor started in the evening, and they just watched while the foals slid down the chute into the bed of fiber, and watched while the AG techs got the cord, and Andy took sponges and towels and dried the filly all over and got her up on her wobbly legs. Sarah got to touch her then for the first time. Sarah patted her and helped dry her, and Florian helped, until Andy said that was enough and picked the filly up. Andy was very strong, and he said there was no way any truck was going to take the filly down to the barn. He could carry her.
I want to see her, Sarah said.
We can walk down, Florian said, and looked at Catelyn, who stood by all this, taking it in. He knew how Catelyn thought, but a great deal bewildered by all the fuss, by babies, and by Sarah's worry over the filly. It was healthy. It was all right. He could read Catelyn's mind that well, so why was Sarah worried? Babies happened. They were supposed to be studying. They had an exercise coming up. I'll go, he said to Catelyn. Sarah and I will be back in about an hour. All right, Catelyn said, because Catelyn had a lot of study to do. Because if he did that, Catelyn was the one who was going to save them. He knew he was going to foul up, unless Catelyn could brief him fast and accurately. But for Sarah, for the filly too, who was not at fault, no animal could choose its time to be born, he had not the least hesitation. Training was training, and Sarah was everything. So Andy carried the filly down the hill to the horse barn, and Florian walked with Sarah, happy the way she was, because she was, and because now there were 3 horses in the world instead of 2. Andy set the little filly down in the warm stall, and got the formula they had ready and warm, and let Sarah give it to the baby, which stood on shaky legs and butted with her nose, as if that could get more milk faster. Sarah laughed and backed up, and the filly wobbled after. "Stand still, Sarah," Andy called out. "Just hold it." Sarah laughed and held on. Down the way, in her stall, the mare called out, leaning over the rail. "I think she smells the baby," Sarah said. "That could be trouble, or she might take up with her. I don't know." "I don't either," Andy said. "There being just 3, Sarah said, everything's like that, isn't it? The books don't say about a horse who never saw the books don't say about a horse who never saw but one other horse in the world." "And she's pregnant," Andy said in his quiet way, shy around a CIT, "and she's got milk already. And animals are like CITs, Sarah. They have their own ways. It's not all one sack set, and there isn't any tape for them." Sarah looked at him, not mad, just like she was a little surprised at all that out of Andy. But it was true. Florian knew it. One pig was trouble, and its birth sisters weren't. It just depended on a lot of things, and when babies happened the way they did with pigs, with a boar and a sow, you were dealing with scrambled gene sets and didn't know what you had. Like CITs, too. At least, with the filly, it was likely to be a lot like its gene sister, the mare, which meant that she was going to be easy to handle. Bang! On the rails down from the row. Bang! On the rails from down the row. The mare called out, loud, and the Azzy who were standing in the barn to watch the new baby went running to get the mare. "This is all complicated," Sarah said, worried. "Animals are like that," Andy said. "She's all right. It would be good if she would accept the baby. Animals know a lot. Some things they seem to be born knowing." "Instinct," Sarah said. "You should cut a tape. I bet you know more than some of the damn books." Andy grinned and laughed, embarrassed. "I'm a gamma, Sarah, not like Florian. I'm just a gamma." As one of the other ag techs came running down to say the mare was fine, they were going to move her to the little barn and get her out of here. "No, do that, but pass her by here." "Oh, whoops. No, do that, but pass her by here," Andy said. "But hold on to her. Let's see what she does. Sarah, if she makes trouble, you better be ready to climb up over those rails to the side there and get into another stall. Florian and I can hold the baby, and the boys can hold the mare, but we sure don't want you to break another arm." "I can help hold her." "Please, Sarah, we don't know what'll happen. Just be ready to move." "He's the best," Florian said. "Andy's always out there. The supers are always in the offices. Andy's birthed most everything there is. You should do what he says, Sarah." "I'll move," Sarah said, which was something from Sarah. But she liked Andy, and she realized right off that Andy had good sense. That was the way Sarah was. So she stood there watching anxiously as the techs led the mare past, 2 of them, each with a lead on her. The mare pulled, and they let her stop and put her head over the stall door. She snuffed the air and made a strange, interested sound. The baby pricked up her ears and stood there with her nose working hard, too. "Put the mare in the next stall," Andy told the techs holding the mare. "Let's just watch this a while." That was the way Andy worked. Sometimes he didn't know. Sometimes no one knew because no one in the world had ever tried it. But Andy didn't let his animals get hurt, and he had a way of figuring what they were going to do, even if Andy had never read a book in his life. "She's talking to her," Sarah said. "That's what she's doing." "They sure teach something," Andy said. "Animals sort of do tape on each other." "They're a herd animal," Sarah said. "It's got to be everything to do with how they act. They want to be together, I think." "Well, the little girl will fix on people," Andy said. "They're that way when they're born from the tank. But the mare could help this little horse. She's getting milk already, and milk from a healthy animal is a lot healthier than formula. I'm just worried about how she'll act when hers comes." "Politics," Sarah said. "It's always politics, isn't it?" Sarah was amused and watched as the mare put her head over the rail of the next stall. "Look at her. Oh, she wants over here." "Somebody's going to sit all night with the mare, too," Andy said. "When we've got something we don't know about, we just hold on to the ropes and stay ready. But there's a chance the mare will want this baby, and if she does, she's the best help we could get." They were very late getting back up the hill. Florian wouldn't trade the time with Sarah and the filly for his own sake, but he was terribly sorry when he got back to the room, in a dark and quiet apartment, and said to Catelyn, "It's me," when he opened the door. Catelyn said from her bunk, and started dragging herself up on an arm. "Trouble?" "Everything's fine. The baby's doing real well. Sarah's happier than I've ever seen." "Good," Catelyn said, relieved. So he knew Catelyn had been worrying all this time. "I'm sorry, Catelyn." "It's all right. Shower. I'll tell you the stuff." He shut the door, asked the minder for the bathroom light, and started stripping on his way to the bath while Catelyn got herself focused. He hardly ran water over himself and pulled on clean underwear and came out again, cut the light and sat there on his bed while Catelyn, from hers, a calm, coherent voice out of the dark, told him how they were going to have one bitch of a problem tomorrow. They had to break past a minder and get a hostage out alive. They said there were going to be 3 enemies, but you never knew. You never knew what the minder controlled, or if there wasn't some real simple, basic wire job on the door, which was the kind of trap you could fall into if you got to concentrating too much on the tech stuff. They had to head down the hill at 0400. It was drink the briefing down, fix what could happen, and sleep for whatever time they could without getting there out of breath, because you never knew. Sometimes they threw you something they hadn't told you about at all, and you had to cope with an enemy attack before you even got to the exercise. Catelyn never wasted time with what and where. She had showed him a lot in the years they had worked together about how to focus down and think narrow and fast, and he did it now with everything he had, learning the lay of the place from maps he scanned by penlight, not wanting to shine light in Catelyn's eyes, learning exactly how many steps down what hall, what the distance was, and what the angles and lines of sight were at any given point. You hoped intelligence was right, that was all. It was 80 points on the hostage, that was all they were saying. That meant in a 100-point scale at least one of them was expendable. They could do it that way if they had to, which meant him, if it had to be. Catelyn was the one who had the setup best in her head, and she could be the one... Catelyn was the one who had the setup best in her head, and she was the one who would most likely be able to get through the final door, if he could get it open. But you didn't go into anything planning what you could give away. You meant to make the enemy do the giving. He did the best he could, that was all. Thank you for tuning in, Jay Waldrop. Welcome. Welcome back. Eight. It was Catelyn on the phone. Catelyn made a phone call, and Ari flew out of Dr. Edwards' classroom and down the hall to the office as fast as she could run.
Sarah, Catelyn said, we're going to be late. Florian's in hospital.
What happened? Ari cried.
The wall sort of fell, she said. The hospital said I should call Sarah. He's real upset.
Oh, God, she cried. Catelyn, damn it, how bad?
Not too. Don't be mad, Sarah.
Catelyn, damn it, report. What happened?
The enemy was holding a hostage. We had to get in past a minder, and we did that. We got all the way in, but the hostage started a diversion while they were trying to trap the door. The instructor is still trying to find out what happened, but their charge went off. The whole wall went down. It wouldn't really do that, it would blow out, but this was a setup, not a real building, and it must have touched off more than one charge.
Don't they know?
Well, they're dead. Really.
I'm coming. I'm coming to the hospital right now. Meet me at the front door.
She turned around and Dr. Edwards was there, so she told him, fast, and told him call Uncle Dennis, and ran.
He thinks it's his fault, Catelyn said when she got there, at the front door, panting and sick at her stomach. He didn't tell me you had an exercise today, Ari said. That was what she had thought all the terrible way down the hill. He didn't tell me. He was fine, Catelyn said. He didn't make a mistake. They shouldn't have been where they were, that's first. She pointed down the hall, where a man in black was talking to the doctors. That's the instructor. He's been asking questions. The hostage, he's a 13. He's the only one alive. It's a mess. It's a real mess. They're asking whether somebody got their charges mixed up, where the explosives kit was sitting. They think it was up against the wall right where they were working, and they hadn't trapped everything they could have, so that was 2 charges more than they were using on the door. The whole setup came down. Florian kind of threw himself backward and covered up, or he could have been killed too. Lucky the whole door just came down on him before the blocks did. Ari walked on past the desk with Catelyn, down where the doctors were talking with the instructor, and past where Florian was, in the hall, on one of the gurneys. He looked awful, white and bruised and bleeding on his shoulder and on his arms and hands, but they had cleaned those up and sprayed them with gel. Why is he out here? Ari snapped at the med who was standing there. Waiting on X-ray, Sarah. There's a critical inside. I'm all right, Florian muttered, eyes half opening. I'm all right, Sarah. You... Stupid, she almost said. But a super couldn't say that to an Azzy who was tranked. She bit her lip till it hurt. She touched his hand. Florian, it's not your fault. Not yours, Sarah. I wanted to go. With the filly. I could have said. I mean, it's not your fault, hear me? They say something blew up. She went over where the doctors and the instructor were, right up to them. It wasn't Florian's fault, was it? Her voice shook. Because if it was mine first. This is Sarah Emory, Dr. Wojtkowski said to the frowning security instructor who looked at her like she was an upstart CIT brat. Florian and Catelyn's supervisor. The man changed in a hurry.
Sarah, he said, Catelyn-like, stiff. We're still investigating. We'll need to debrief both of them under trank.
No, she said. Young Sarah, I said no. Let them alone. Sarah's correct, a hard voice said from a man in ordinary clothes who had come up on the other side of the group, a man a little out of breath. It was Seely. She never thought she would be that glad to see Seely in her whole life. Uncle Dennis couldn't run, but Seely had, clear from administration. And Florian and Catelyn were right. Seely was security. She knew it the minute he launched into the instructor. It was a lot better. Florian had had a piece of metal driven into his leg. That was the worst, but they had gotten that out, and he had sprains and bruises, and he was going to be sore because they had pulled a lot of building blocks off the door that had fallen on him.
Fools.
Was what Seeley said when Ari asked him what he had found out, talking to Catelyn and talking to the instructor and the hostage when he came around, what little he could. When she heard it, she drafted Seeley into the room where Florian was starting to come around. "Tell him," she said, while Catelyn came into the room behind Seeley and stood there with her arms folded. So Seeley did.
"Are you hearing me?"
Seeley asked Florian.
"Yes," Florian said. "The instructor is under reprimand. The amount of explosives allotted exceeded the strength of the setup. The hostage attempted a distraction according to his orders, while the team inside was trapping the door. The hostage didn't know what happened at that point. He took out one team member. Apparently, the two working with the door had set their kit close to them, probably right between them, and possibly the distraction, or the third boy falling against them, dropped the charge they were working with into two others they had in the kit."
They didn't start trapping the door they were behind until we got past the minder," Catelyn said, walking close to the bed. "They thought they could get out and score points because there was a third team coming in at our backs. They didn't tell us that. They were working with the enemy, and they were supposed to hit us from behind. But they were sticking to the instructor's timetable, and we got past the minder too fast."
"Too fast?"
Florian murmured, with a flutter of his eyes.
"That's crazy. What was I supposed to do?"
So the other team tried to improvise and tried to trap the door when they knew we were ahead of what they expected. And the hostage followed his orders, kicked the guard, but the guard fell into the two at the door and they dropped the charge right into their kit. Wasn't your fault. We couldn't fire into the room because of the hostage. He was supposed to be on our side and cause them trouble. It was a double-team exercise. So it was the setup that went wrong.
"You didn't trap the door?"
Seeley asked Florian. "I can't remember," Florian said. Then blearily, "No, I wouldn't. No reason. Not in the plan." "You didn't," Catelyn said. "I was covering your back in case the third enemy was behind. You were going to blow the door and gas the room, remember?" Florian grimaced as if hurt. "I can't remember. It's just gone. I don't even remember it blowing."
"Happens,"
Seeley said, arms folded, just like Catelyn. Ari sat there in a straight chair and listened, and wondered at Seeley.
"You may never get those seconds back. The shock jolted you. But you're all right. It wasn't your fault."
"You don't put your charges," Florian said thickly, "under where you're working."
"You don't exceed your building limits with the charges in a training exercise either, or set up a double-team course with a Murphy factor in it like that in a dead-end room. You exceeded expectations. The other team fell below. End report. You'll be back in training next week. They won't."
Actually, this book might have been the first place that I saw the phrase Murphy factor. And I've used it ever since. Once you learn what it means. As in Murphy's Law, anything that can go wrong will.
"You'll be back in training next week. They won't."
"Yes, sir," Florian said quietly. "I'm sorry about them, though."
"He needs tape," Seeley said, looking at Ari. "He shouldn't feel that way. That'll give him trouble in future."
That made her mad, and shouldn't. Seeley was trying to help. "I'll decide," she said, afraid he was going to say that to Uncle Dennis, too. Seeley nodded, very short, very correct.
"I have business," he said. "If that's all, Sarah, you're doing everything right here."
"Thank you, Seeley, very much. Tell Uncle Dennis I might be over here for supper."
"Yes, Sarah."
Seeley left. Catelyn walked over to the chair, arms still folded, and sat down.
Catelyn, Ari said, did you get hit?
Not much, Catelyn said. Most of my end of the hall was still standing. She flexed her left arm and wrist. Sprained from moving the blocks, that's all.
I went too fast,
Florian said, like he was still a little tranked.
That's crazy. It was an old model minder.
They made the mistake, Catelyn said firmly, definite as the sun in the sky. We didn't. Ari bit her lip. Florian got to use the house library. Florian got into the manuals for the house systems. Florian knew a lot of things they didn't, down in the town, because Florian and Catelyn never stopped learning. She went out in the hall, got permission for the phone, and called Uncle Dennis herself.
Uncle Dennis, she said, Florian worked the course too fast. That's what they're saying. He got hurt for being better. That's lousy, Uncle Dennis. He could have gotten killed. 3 people did. Aren't there any better instructors down there?
Uncle Dennis didn't answer right off. Then he said,
I've got Seeley's report up now. Give me a while. How is he?
He's damn sore,
she said, forgetting not to say damn to Uncle Dennis, and told him what Dr. Wojtkowski had said and what Seeley and Catelyn had said. Let's try that sentence again. And told him what Dr. Wojtkowski had said and what Seeley and Catelyn had said.
I agree with you. If that's borne out in the report, we're going to have to do something. Do you want to spend the night down there, or is he going to need that?
I want to do it. With Catelyn.
All right,
Uncle Dennis said, without arguing at all.
Make sure you get something to eat. Here.
Uncle Dennis surprised her sometimes. She went back to the room, feeling a little like she had been hit with something, too. Feeling a little like she had been hit with something, too. Everything had been so good, and then everything went so bad. And then Seeley and Dennis both got reasonable when she least expected it.
They're going to fix things, she said to Catelyn, because Florian's eyes were shut. I just called Uncle Dennis. I think there's a foul up somewhere higher than the instructor. I think you know too much for down there.
Sounds right, Catelyn said, but it makes me mad, Sarah. They keep saying we're a little better than they expect. They wasted those Aussie. They were all right. They weren't the best in green, but they didn't need to be killed. They lived right across the hall from us.
Damn it,
she said, and sat down with her hands between her knees, cold all over and sick in her stomach, because it was not a game. What they did was never a game. Catelyn was right from the start. Nine. Florian was still limping a little, but he was doing all right when he came into the barn with Catelyn and Amy and the other kids. Ari watched him, watched a smile light his face when he saw the mare and the filly. 2 fillies. One with a light mane and tail, that was Ari's, and one with black. That was Horse's daughter. "Look at her!" Florian exclaimed, and forgot all about his limp, and came and patted the mare on the shoulder, and hugged her around the neck, which impressed hell out of the kids. Except Catelyn, of course, who knew Florian wasn't scared of horses. The mare deserved it, in Ari's estimation. The mare mothered both babies, the one she had birthed and the one who was her Jean sister, which of course the mare could not understand, except the mare was just generous and took care of both of them.
"She's so big," Amy said.
They were a little scared of the fillies, too. It was the first time they had ever been close to animals, and they were still afraid they were going to get knocked down. Good guess, because they tended to spread out and get too close and dodge into each other's and the horses' way when the horses shied. Even Catelyn, who backed up and tucked her hands behind her, stiff and azzy, when Stacy nearly bumped into her. Maddie yelped and nearly got it from the mare's backside, and Ari just dropped her face into her hands and looked up again, with the horses all off across the big barn arena and the kids looking a little foolish. You have to go a little slower, Andy said from behind them. They don't want to step on you, but you smell funny to 'em. The kids looked at Andy as if they thought he was joking or they had just been insulted.
Come on, Ari said to Florian. Let's see if we can get her.
Wait, Sarah, I can, Florian said, and walked after her. It was strange, finally, to come out in the open and pretend they were mostly friends of Amy's, that everyone knew was her friend, and... Excuse me. Ugh, my apologies. It was strange, finally, to come out in the open and pretend they were mostly friends of Amy's, that everyone knew was her friend, and who, she figured, was safer from disappearing than anybody else, because her mama was a friend of Uncle Dennis and Uncle Gerard. She didn't think it would happen anymore, but the kids worried, and that was the setup she had worked out with Amy, because the kids were still worried. But, she told them, they could go to places like seeing the new babies together and not have anybody get onto the fact that she had friends. The same way she could buy things for people and not have Uncle Gerard know they saw each other more than at parties. Andy wasn't in the house circuit, so Andy wouldn't tell everything he saw, and neither would the Azzy in the barn. So they felt safer. Florian caught the mare with no trouble. He brought her back, and the fillies came right along. That impressed the kids, too. It was strange how the kids looked at Florian and Catelyn now, too, since Florian had come back still a little stiff and sore, and she had had Florian and Catelyn tell what had happened down there in the exercise. It was all right to tell them, she had explained to Florian and Catelyn, because they were CITs, and they were in the house, except Sam, and Sam was all right. So Florian had started telling it, but when he got to the part where he went down the hall, he couldn't remember past that point, and Catelyn had to tell it, and about the hospital and everything. It was the first time either one of them had said more than a sentence or two at a time to the kids, and it was something to get Catelyn to tell a story. But once Catelyn got warmed up, Catelyn knew enough gory stories to get them all going, and all of a sudden the kids seemed to figure out that Florian and Catelyn were real. That a whole lot of things were. That they had seen dead people. That they really could do what she said. Not really, she thought, that they had ever doubted her. Oh, there's an extra comma there. That's on me. Not really, she thought, that they had ever doubted her, but that they had had no way to understand what it was like to walk down a hall toward an enemy, carrying explosives which, thank God, had not gone off. Or even that there were enemies who could come right up on Reseune's grounds and try to blow things up or shoot people. They started wondering why. That was one thing that was different. They wanted to know what went on in the council and why people had wanted to take things from her in court, and they got to questions where she couldn't give them all the answers. That's something I'm still trying to figure out, she had told them, except that there are people who don't want Azzy to be born, and they'd like to shut Reseune down. We do more than Azzy. We do more than Azzy, Sam had said. Florian and Catelyn wouldn't like not to be born, Amy had said. They might be born, Ari said, but they'd bring them up like CITs and teach them like CITs. They wouldn't like it. Would you? Amy had asked them. Would you? Amy had asked them, because they had started asking Florian and Catelyn questions that didn't go through her. No, Florian had said, very quiet, while Catelyn shook her head. Ari knew. Florian was too polite to say what he had said to her when she had talked with them about it before, that he didn't like most CITs because they were kind of slow about things. A lot of Cits, he had said, worked harder trying to make up their minds what to do than they did doing what they'd decided, and he hated to be around people like that. And Catelyn had said, a depth of thought which had surprised her, that she figured Cits had made an Azzy to run things like security because they knew they couldn't trust each other with guns. Do you like being Azzy? Stacy had gotten far enough to ask, that time down in the tunnels. Florian had gotten a little embarrassed and nodded without saying a thing. "I think he's sexy," Maddie had said outright in school, not in Florian or Catlin's hearing. "I wish I had him," and giggled. "I'm glad you don't," had been Ari's thought. That popped into her head again while Florian was leading the horses back. He was so neat and trim in his black uniform you couldn't see he was a kid if you didn't know the mare's height. Florian and Catlin were enough to make you jealous you couldn't walk like that and look like that and be like that. Because CITs didn't take care of themselves like that, she thought. They ate too much, and they spent too much of their time sitting down, and, face it, she told herself, nature dealt Amy eyes that had to be corrected and made Tommy just average-looking, and didn't give Maddie any sense. While Florian and Catlin looked like that and were so good at what they did that they were out of green and into house security because they were just better than their predecessors, because they were taught after the war, Dennis had said, using modern-day stuff that made them work harder and use what they had, and because she was right, they had learned a lot of classified stuff up in the house that the instructors down in Green didn't even know about, that was different since sometime in the war, too. All of which came down to the fact that they started doing their tape in house security, and that after this, no exercise with them involved could use a double-blind situation. I'm going to repeat that, because I tripped all over it. Let's see if I trip all over it again. There's a lot of informational content in that paragraph. A lot of extra texture and flesh going on there that explains a lot of what's going on about Florian and Catlin and how they train security Azzy. While Florian and Catlin looked like that and were so good at what they did that they were out of green and into house security, because they were just better than their predecessors, because they were taught after the war, Dennis had said, using modern-day stuff that made them work harder and use what they had, and because she was right, they had learned a lot of classified stuff up in the house that the instructors down in Green didn't even know about, that was different since sometime in the war, too. All of which came down to the fact that they started doing their tape in house security, and that after this, no exercise with them involved could use a double-blind situation. Like adult security. Because their reactions had gotten so fast and so dangerous, there was no way to make it safe if they got surprised, and they could push other teams past all their training. She was damned glad Maddie didn't have their contracts. Damned glad Maddie didn't have her hands on Florian and didn't have any chance to mess with that partnership, because she understood now beyond any doubt that it was life and death business with them. She had made Florian late for one study session. Florian and Catlin had thrown everything they had into their exercise, afraid they were going to fail it, and that had made them overrun the course and push another team to the point it got rattled and made a mistake. That was what had happened. So that 3 Azzy had gotten killed was, at least remotely, her fault. Not blamable fault, but it was part of the chain of what had happened, and she had to live with that. She was terribly glad she hadn't done anything with Florian that would have put any more strain on him, because he could just as well have been dead, and it would have been her fault, really, truly her fault. Maddie was right. He was so damned pretty. She wanted so much to do with him exactly what Maddie wanted to do. And Maddie would have no idea in her head why she couldn't. She wished to hell Ari Sr. could talk back and forth, because she had tried to ask Base 1 if Ari had anything to say about Florian being in hospital, or whether it was safe to do sex with her Ozzy if they were security. But Base 1 had said there was no such information. She was so desperate she even thought about getting Seeley off in a corner somewhere and asking him that question. But Seeley was as much Seeley as he had ever been, and not even sex could make her that desperate. Yet. 10. Her 12th birthday, she had a big party. A dance in the rec hall with every kid in Reseune who was above 9 and under 20. Uncle Dennis begged off and said he had work, but that was because he hated the music. He missed something, because Catelyn learned to dance. Catelyn got the idea of music. It's a mnemonic, Ari said, when Catelyn looked puzzled at the dancing. The variations on the pattern are the part that makes it work. Florian had no trouble at all picking it up, but he was too self-conscious to clown with it in public. That was the funny thing. And it was Catelyn who shocked everybody by trying to teach Sam a step he couldn't get, and Azzy out on the floor with a CIT. Everybody got to watching, not mad, just amazed, and Catelyn, in a gauzy black blouse that covered just about what it had to with opaque places, and black satin pants that showed off her slim hips like everything, smiled, did 3 or 4 fast steps, and showed what you could do if you could isolate muscle groups and keep time with the music. After that, every boy in the room wanted to have one dance with Catelyn, and it was funny as hell, because all the girls in the room didn't know whether to be jealous of an Azzy or not. So Maddie Strassen flounced over and asked Florian, and the other girls started asking him, and a few older CIT kids who had Azzy their own age began showing them the steps, until the thing got all over the house by the next morning. You know, Uncle Dennis said about it at breakfast, there are Azzy that could bother. There are Azzy that could bother. You really ought to be careful.
Seeley was there, she said, tweaking Uncle Dennis a bit, and a lot of security. They could have stopped it any time.
Probably the music paralyzed their judgment. They were there to stop abolitionists with grenades. They needn't have worried. They couldn't get past the noise.
Well, none of the Azzy got pushed. Some would dance, some wouldn't. Nobody pushed anybody. Florian said Catelyn thought it was interesting. She's supposed to protect me, right? And she's not as social as Florian. But she can imitate anything physical, and she can act like nobody. And she can act like anybody. So she was having a great time out there. She was psyching everybody and getting the feel of how they moved, and they never knew what she was doing. Want to know what she said?
What?
She said they were all soft, and they were generally real vulnerable in their balance. That she could take out any one of them with an elbow.
Uncle Dennis sneezed into his orange juice. "11. More shots. They brought her period on. She swore she was going to get Dr. Ivanov. A call at his door at night, and blam! A gift from Florian. He probably had enough of her blood to transfuse most of Novgorod.
I think I want a different doctor, she said to Uncle Dennis.
Why? Uncle Dennis asked over his reports at the supper table, which was the only place she saw him, at breakfast and at supper.
Because I'm tired of getting stuck with needles. I'm going to be anemic.
Dear, it's a study. It got started when you were born, and it's a very valuable study. You just have to put up with it. I don't care what doctor you have, and you'd hurt Petros's feelings. You know he's very fond of you.
He smiles very nice right before he gives me something that makes me want to throw up.
You know, you have to watch, dear. Your voice does tell what's going on with your cycles. Cycles. That's something you don't want to make that public, isn't it?
I know why not. I don't know why they don't put it on the news. Why don't you hand the news services the tapes from my bedroom? I bet I can give them some real thrills if I work at it. I bet the security techs just love it.
Who said we were taping? That's a security system.
Florian and Catelyn are house security, remember?
Uncle Dennis put down his reports, suddenly very serious. So was she, not having intended to bring that up. Yet. Till they found out some other things. But he was off his balance. She had her opening. She got him with it. Good.
Dear, all right.
Yes, there are tapes. They go into archive. No one accesses them. They're just a historical record.
Of me having my period.
Ari, dear, don't be coarse.
I think it's I think it's coarse. I think it is
It's IT''S.
and I feel like it would be better if she emphasized the E's. I think it's coarse.
That's better. Ari, dear, don't be coarse.
I think it's coarse. I think it's a damn coarse thing to do to me. I want that system shut down, Uncle Dennis. I want it off. I want those tapes destroyed. I want Florian and Catelyn to rip out that entire unit at the control board.
Dear me, they are observant, aren't they?
Damn right they are.
Ari, dear, don't swear. You're not old enough.
I want that unit off. I want it out. I want those tapes burned. I want to move up to my apartment, and I want Florian and Catelyn to go over that and have access to all the control boards in all the secret little rooms in security.
Ari, dear, calm down. I'll have them turn it off.
The hell! You'll just relocate the board somewhere else you think Florian and Catelyn won't find it.
Well, then you'd have a problem, wouldn't you? You have to believe me.
No, I don't, because I'll know if that unit is running.
How?
I'm not going to tell you. Ask Seeley. I'm sure he can explain it.
Ari, dear, your temper is running a bit high today. I'm sure you've noticed. And I really don't want to discuss things with you when you're on like this. I'm very fond of you, but no one likes to listen to an cultured 12-year-old swear like a line soldier, and no one likes to be called a liar, as you once said in a very public place. So do you think you could lower the volume a little and discuss this rationally, or shall we say I'm sure Seeley is still a little head? Let me try that again, because he really gets something across here. So do you think you could lower the volume a little and discuss this rationally, or shall we say I'm sure Seeley is still a little ahead of Florian? If I wanted to continue the surveillance against your wishes, I appreciate the fact you're not a little girl anymore. I know there are very good reasons why you don't want to be taped in your bedroom, and the fact that you've objected is enough. We can't get any value out of a study if the subject is acting for the cameras now, can we? So the taping will stop, not because you have the power to take out the units, but because it loses its value.
I want the tapes burned.
I'm sorry, not even we can get at them. They've gone into the archive vault under the mountain out there, and they're irretrievable as long as you're active in the house computer.
You mean while I'm logged in?
No, as long as you're an active CIT number in the files. As long as you live, dear, which is going to be a long time. And then you won't care, will you, whether somebody has a tape of a 12-year-old girl in her underwear?
You've seen those tapes.
No, I know the 12-year-old. That's quite enough. The taping will shut down. Florian can verify it if you like, and Florian can remove the unit himself with, I trust, some reasonable care not to damage the rest of the system.
Today.
Uncle Dennis looked very worried. Ari, I am sorry. He was acting with her. Working her. The way he had been working the whole situation and trying to get her to believe him. The way she worked him. He was probably good enough to spot that, too. If Seeley was ahead of Florian, Uncle Dennis was still ahead of her, she thought. Maybe. But she could work him right back by using her upset and letting it go on long enough to let him do the shift on her, and do it a couple of times so he thought he had her. Then she could do what he was trying to get her to do, and see where it led, without being led. Then she could do what he was trying to get her to do, and see where it led, without being led. I'm sorry, Ari. She glared at him. Ari, this is a very bad time for this. I wish you'd come to me earlier. Damn it, he wanted her to ask. She wanted to work him to have to tell her whatever he was up to, but that would give it away for sure that she was onto him working her, which he might know anyway. You never knew how many layers there were with Uncle Dennis.
You know there's a bill up to extend you the First Ari's special status.
I know.
You know it's going to pass. There's not going to be any problem with it. There's no way the centrists can stop it.
That's nice, isn't it?
It's the one thing the court didn't hand you with Ari's rights. The one thing they held back. So you'll have that. You'll have everything. You know Reseune is so proud of you.
Flattery, flattery, Uncle Dennis.
You are going to be on your own in a few years. You'll leave this apartment and move to yours, and I won't be with you. I'll go back to being a fat old bachelor and see you mostly in and out of the offices and at parties.
Saying bad things on himself. Humor. Trying to get her to think about missing him. She would. So you didn't let people hook you, not when they were Uncle Dennis. She didn't say a thing. She just let him go on.
I worry, Ari. I really hope I've done all right with you.
Trying to scare her. Trying to talk like something was going to change. Another mama event. Damn him anyway. I hope you do disappear, Uncle Dennis. That wasn't quite the truth, but it was a real low move Uncle Dennis was doing, and she wasn't about to show how mad it made her. We get along all right.
I'm very fond of you.
God, he's really pushing it.
Ari, are you mad?
I sure am.
I'm sorry, sweet. I really am. Someday I can tell you why we do these things. Not now.
Oh, that's a hook, isn't it?
You know Amy's mother invited you and Florian and Catelyn to come over this evening.
I didn't know that. No.
Well, she did. Why don't you?
Because I feel lousy, and Amy didn't say anything about it.
It's a surprise.
The hell?
I think you've been studying too hard. I think an evening out would do you a world of good.
I don't want to go anywhere. I feel lousy. I want to go to bed.
I really think you should go to Amy's.
I'm not going to Amy's. Uncle Dennis didn't look happy at all, and began getting up.
I'll call Dr. Ivanov. I think maybe he did give you something that's bothering you. Maybe he can send you something.
The hell he can! I don't want any more shots. I don't want any more blood tests. I don't want any more cameras in my bedroom. I don't want any more people messing with me.
All right, all right. No medicine, nothing. I'll talk to Petros.
He frowned.
I'm really upset about this, Ari.
I don't care. She got up from the table. She was wobbly from anger. It was out of control. She was. She hated the feeling, hated whatever they did to her.
I mean, I'm worried.
Uncle Dennis said,
Ari, you're using the computer tonight, aren't you?
What has that got to do with anything?
Just, when you do, remember I love you.
That hit her. Uncle Dennis saying, I love you? It was a trap for sure. It hurt, because it was about the lowest try yet. Sure, she said shortly. I'm going to my room, Uncle Dennis.
Hormones, he said as shortly. It's hormones. Adolescence is a bitch. I'll be glad when you're through this. I really will.
She walked out and shut the door between her hallway and the living room. Florian and Catelyn stepped out their door the instant she did, saying, What's the matter? With their faces. I'm fine, she said. Uncle Dennis and I had a discussion about the taping. You're going to take the unit out first thing tomorrow. Good, Florian said in a vague, stunned way. I'm going to my room, she said. I'm all right. Don't worry about me. Everything's fine. She walked past them. She closed the door of her room. She looked at the computer on the desk. Exactly, she figured, what he wanted her to do. She could frustrate hell out of him, make him worry. not touch the thing for days. Not smart. The best thing was to find out what he was wanting, then deal with it. "Base 1, she said. "Is there a message?" "No message," Base 1 said through the minder. That was not what she expected. "Base 1, what is in the system?" The screen lit. She went over to it. There was only one item waiting for her. The regular weekly update. 2nd week of April, 2290. She sat down in front of the screen. Her hands were shaking. She clenched them, terrified, not sure why. But something was in it. Something Dennis wanted was in that week, that year. 2nd week of April. 2nd week of April. 5 years ago. She had been at school. In the sandbox. She had started home. Selection 1. It came up. It started scrolling at the usual pace. Olga Emory. Deceased, April 13, 2290. Ari Sr. had been at school, when her Uncle Gregory had come to get her and break the news. "Damn it!" she screamed, and got up and grabbed the first thing she found and threw it. Pens scattered clear across the bed, and the holder hit the wall. She grabbed a jar and threw it at the mirror, and both shattered and fell. As Catelyn and Florian came running in. She sat down on her bed, and grabbed up Pooh Thing and hugged him, stroked his shabby fur, and felt like she was going to throw up. "Sirrah," Florian said. And he and Catelyn came and knelt down by the side of the bed where she was sitting, both of them, even though she had been breaking things and they must think she was crazy. It was terribly scary for them. It was scary for her to have them come that close when she was already cornered. She knew how dangerous they were, and there was nothing she could trust. "Sirrah," Catelyn said, and got up by her, just straightened up, solid muscle, and flowed onto the bed and touched her shoulder. "Sirrah, is there an enemy?" She could have taken Catelyn with her elbow. She thought about it. She knew Catelyn did. Florian put his hand on hers, on the edge of the bed. "Sirrah, are you hurt? Has something happened?" She reached up with her other hand and touched Catelyn's, on her shoulder. Florian edged up onto the bed on her other side, and she got her breath and got her arm behind Catelyn, and her hand locked onto Florian's and just sat there a moment. Pooh Thing fell. She let him. "They sent Mama away," she said, "because Ari's mother died." "What, Sirrah?" Florian asked. "What do you mean? When did she die?" "The same day, when Ari was the same age. Her uncle came to get her, just like Uncle Dennis came for me." Tears ran out of her eyes and splashed onto her lap, but she wasn't crying, not feeling it anyway. The tears just fell. "I'm a replicant, not just genetic. I'm like you. I'm exact." "That's not so bad," Catelyn said. "They sent my mama away. They sent her on a long trip through Jump. It made her sick, and she died, Catelyn. She died because they wanted her to." Catelyn tapped her shoulder, hard, leaned up to her ear, and whispered, "Monitors." She felt the shock of that reminder in her bones and caught her breath, trying to think. The scrolling stopped on the screen in front of them. "Ari, check base 1, the minder said. She made a second gasp after air, like she was drowning. She held on to Florian and Catelyn. "Ari, check base 1. Uncle Dennis had known what would come up. Uncle Dennis hadn't wanted her to go online tonight. Go to Amy's, he had said. Then told her to check the computer. "Ari, check base 1. "Base 1, damn it!" She disentangled herself from Florian and Catelyn and thought it was unusual that Uncle Dennis and Seeley hadn't tried to get in to see about her when the mirror broke. And then she thought that it wasn't unusual at all. Not with the room monitored. She sat down at the terminal, in front of the monitor. "Ari," it said, "this is Ari Senior. By now you've gotten the update. By now you know some things you may not have figured out before. Are you upset?" "Of course not." She felt Florian beside her. She grabbed his arm and held it, hard. "Go on, Ari. Your access is upgraded. You are no longer on a time lag. Data is available through April 13, 2295. She grabbed Catelyn's shoulder on the other side of her. "Go on, Ari. That's when I was 12. Updates will still be weekly. Good night, Ari." She clenched down until her fingers hurt, and then she realized that what she was doing and let up. "Log off," she said, and sat there shaking. Catelyn patted her shoulder and gave her the hand signs they had made up for tomorrow outside. Florian signed, "Tonight, take out monitor." She shook her head and signed, "Stay," and took them each by a hand, knowing that 5 more years of data were in the files. But she had an idea what was in it. Exactly what was in it. Damn it! Damn it! Damn it! Security was still taping. "Florian," she said, "Catelyn, we are going to security. Right now." Catelyn made the sign for Seelie. "They won't stop us. Get your stuff. Come on. We're going to go kill that thing. Hear that, Uncle Dennis?" He didn't answer. Of course not. She went and washed her face while Florian was getting his small toolkit, while Catelyn was getting whatever she thought she might need, which probably included a length of fine wire. They walked out into the living room. Uncle Dennis was reading at the dining table beyond the arch, like most evenings. He looked at her. She said, "We're going down to security, in case you missed it."
"I'll advise them," Uncle Dennis said. "Don't break anything, Florian."
Seelie was not in the room. Seelie should have been. Maybe Seelie was monitoring from the office. She stood there and stared at Uncle Dennis a long, long while.
"Like your mama," Uncle Dennis said, "I've tried to help you."
"They could kill you."
"Yes, I know that. You know that. You could do that any time if you put your mind to it. We have to take chances like that. Because I'm your friend. Not your uncle. Not really. I've been your friend for as long as you've lived."
"Which how long?"
"As long as you've lived. You're Ari. One is the other. That's what this is all about. Neither one of you betrayed the other one. You are the one who did all these things, in a very direct sense. Think about it."
"You're crazy! Everybody in this house is crazy!"
"No. Go see about security. I'll tell them. Your accesses have upgraded considerably tonight. You have real authority in some things. You don't have to live here. You can take your apartment if you want to. It'll be very large for a young girl and 2 Azzy. But you have the key. If you want to go there, you can. Florian can access the security system there and vet it for you. Or you can come back here when you're through. Or you can go over to Amy's. Her mother won't ask any questions."
"Does everybody in Reseune know what I am?"
"Of course. Everybody knew the first Ari. And you began, at least on paper, the day after she died."
"Damn you."
"Same temper, too. But she learned to control it. Learned to use it, not let it use her. There's a lot of Cyteen history in those data files, too. A lot of Reseune history. A lot of things your education has just avoided until now. Once upon a time, there was a man who could see the future. He began trying to change his life. But that was his future. Someday you'll access yours, as far as you want to. Think about it."
"I'm not doing anything you tell me from now on." Ask yourself, why 5 years? Why not 6? Why not 4? Ask the computer what happened April 13, 2295.
You tell me.
You can look it up. You have the access.
I want all my stuff up at my apartment.
That's fine. Tell housekeeping. They can do that first thing in the morning. You'd better pack at least the basics for the apartment where you're going. Or buy it. Necessaries is open round the clock. Necessaries being a proper name, it's italicized. Necessaries is open round the clock. If you need anything, like advice on how to fill out the paperwork, whatever, call me. I certainly don't mind helping you.
Trust Dennis to get to the mundane, the depressing workaday details of anything. I'll manage.
I know you will, dear. I'm still here. If I can help you, I want to. Florian, Catelyn, don't let her hurt herself. Please. And take some pajamas.
Damn it, Uncle Dennis!
Dear, somebody has to take care of things. It's usually me. Do you want to go to your apartment? Or do you want to come back and live here for a little while, till you've figured out what it takes to run an apartment on your own?
No. No, I don't. I'll manage.
I'll send housekeeping for you. They can't go in up there, but I'll have a package waiting at your door and send your things on tomorrow. Practical things, Ari. I'll fill out your supply forms for you, and your budget report. You have to have that, or you foul up accounting. I'll give you copies so you know how to set it up in your base.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ari. Thank you for being reasonable about this. This is different from Ari series.
Bogus.
Where were we? I'll send housekeeping for you. They can't go in up there, but I'll have a package waiting at your door. And send your things on tomorrow. Practical things, Ari. I'll fill out your supply forms for you, and your budget report. You have to have that, or you foul up accounting. But I'll give you copies so you know how to set it up in your base.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ari. Thank you for being reasonable about this. This is different from Ari Senior, understand? She was 14 when she moved out of this apartment. But you're overrunning your course too, by a little. Please, take care of yourself. Can you give me a kiss?
She stood there, frozen. Out of this apartment. She swallowed a lump of nausea and shook her head. Not right now. Not right now, Uncle Dennis. He nodded.
Sometime, then.
What the blank? I don't know what's going on. There's nobody on the line.
Sometime.
He nodded.
Sometime, then.
She clenched her jaw and motioned to Florian and Catelyn that they were leaving.
And that is where we will call it for today. We will read the next chapter mañana. So yeah, things are moving along. She knows that not only is she a birth clone, Mic disconnected itself, I apologize. She now knows that she's not only a birth clone, but a replicate, and a true replicate at that, trying to emulate the original Ariane Emory as much as humanly possible. She now knows this, so this is a turning point. This is a bit of a turning point. It is a major development for her, as you can probably guess. Anyone who has seen the show Pantheon, and thank you to whoever it was who recommended it to me, is now seeing some distinct similarities conceptually in aspects of that. I want to say someone brought it up while we were reading through Permutation City, but I might be misremembering. Good stuff anyway, mostly. Some bits I was like scratching my head over. I'm like, I don't know how well that works. Or, oh, such and such is a little cheesy, but at the same time, I get it. You're trying to make it palatable, but still some pretty good sci-fi. Anyway, we're getting to the real meat and potatoes of the beastie. And from here on out, it is anybody's game, as far as Ari is concerned. So yeah, I'll leave you with that for today, and we'll resume this tomorrow. As ever, I try to stream 3 days a week. I don't know what those are. We're coming up on the end of the month, so I will update the playlists at that point. And, yeah. We'll keep on reading the book. We're still a ways from the end. We got a lot more book to go. Like a third of the book is left, roughly. I am planning on probably just getting right down to Regenesis right after this, but we'll see how I'm doing. This is a good one. And plus, we got a great kind of sex ed session. Not about the sex itself, but about the impact sex can have on your life. Some interesting and valuable advice hidden away in there. Who'd have thunk? Anyway, see you all later. Stay safe, stay sane, be decent to each other.